Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Williamson and I am Vice President of Government Affairs and Economic Advisor at Huawei Technologies. It is my distinct pleasure to talk to you today. In the following presentation, I would like to take the opportunity to share with you some of the key findings of an extensive research study we completed very recently with the world-leading Boston consultancy group on the digital economy for the world's leading countries, including Brazil and Mexico. But to begin and provide context, during his recent speech, Chi Lu, technology industry veteran and visionary, described how our global society was on the cusp of a truly revolutionary new era. In the agricultural age, output efficiency was constrained by land resources. In the industrial age, the division and specialization of labor and new energy inputs led to increasing returns to scale. In the information age, these returns have accelerated further. In the data-driven era, the key drivers are expected to be a partnership between technology companies in the private sector and government as we enter the fourth industrial revolution, and the usage of new general-purpose technologies such as 5G, AI, cloud computing, and the Internet of Things. This is not just theoretical or hypothetical. The data show that the digital economy has been growing consistently faster than the traditional economy for a number of years now. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly accelerated this digital transition. For many small and medium-sized businesses, it was go digital or go dark during the pandemic. One of the best studies to date by the International Telecommunications Union also proves empirically the importance of increasing mobile and fixed broadband access to citizens and businesses. The ITU finds that a 10% increase in mobile broadband penetration across the country led to a permanent boost in GDP of 1.5% between 2007 and 2019. The impact was even more pronounced for developing countries. New technologies like 5G, AI, and the Internet of Things are also forecast by experts to provide sizable contributions to GDP this decade. 15% for AI and 12 to 15% for the Internet of Things. The digital economy is also evolving rapidly. This chart illustrates the shift that digitalization is making as it increasingly impacts on many aspects of the economy. We are most familiar with the core definition, or the digital sector, that prevailed arguably until the mid-2000s. This included hardware manufacturing, software, information services and telecommunications. From the mid-2000s, we have become aware of the evolution to Internet 2.0, which we call the digital economy or narrow definition, through the proliferation of digital platforms, mobile apps and digital payment services. The digital economy incorporates all economic activity that is reliant upon or significantly enhanced by the use of digital inputs, including digital technologies, digital infrastructure, digital services and data. It refers to all producers and consumers, including government, that are utilising these digital inputs in their economic activities. This decade will witness a further, more fundamental expansion to the fully digitalised economy. It will be driven by new general-purpose technologies such as 5G, the Internet of Things, AI and cloud computing. This broad definition sees almost all economic sectors go through digital transformation, so that it becomes ubiquitous, akin to the process of electrification and the internal combustion engine 100 years ago, and as impactful. Additionally, whereas the core and narrow definitions came to be captured value-wise by giant technology firms, we expect the digitalised economy to afford many more potential opportunities for value to be captured domestically, as digital tools can be utilised and productivity enhanced by local firms rather than just foreign internet platforms. The data also suggest a strong correlation between economic growth and the different definitions of core, narrow and broad digital economy, as you can see from these charts. We have measured these across ICT sector value added for core, B2C e-commerce for narrow, and a proxy indicator for the broad definition of IT expenditure on software and data centers. Moreover, the correlations mostly hold for both advanced economies and developing economies and over time. The COVID-19 pandemic has accentuated the need for reliable, affordable broadband. Of that, there seems to be little doubt. For many households during lockdowns and social distancing mandates, it has been the only way that many people could continue to work, study, shop, bank, be entertained, and access government healthcare information. The data since early 2020 also point to a step change in our increased reliance on digital infrastructure and the digital economy. According to the Global Entertainment and Media Outlook 2021 to 2025, for example, some telecom operators are reportedly carrying up to 60% more data on their networks than they did before the pandemic. Some forward-thinking governments do not need further convincing. They have made a proactive commitment to investment in digitalization, an essential part of their national economic recovery and driver of long-term total factor productivity growth. For example, China's new infrastructure plan will invest an estimated $2.6 trillion over 5 years to start new infrastructure construction. 7 major industries will be targeted. These include 5G, AI, big data centers, the industrial internet, intercity high-speed rail, charging piles, and ultra-high voltage construction. The European Union's Next Generation EU plan proposes the creation of a €750 billion fund, 20% of it which will be targeted solely on digital infrastructure and digital ecosystems. Germany's invested €5 billion to set up MIG, a state-owned enterprise for 5G white zones. South Korea's new digital deal is perhaps the most ambitious proportionately to date. It's a real bet that the future is digital, and a plan that will take the country from digital follower to global leader. The government is committed to investing in 10 sunrise industries, including 5G, AI, and smart healthcare. South Africa undertook a number of initiatives to maximize the ease of spectrum use and ease digital connectivity constraints during the pandemic. It also has big plans to upgrade national infrastructure. Brazil likewise did much to help support telecom companies and encourage connectivity in rural areas during the pandemic, and will continue to support the sector in its Reboot for the Economy programme. And finally, Thailand has undertaken other types of measures to boost digital connectivity, including subsidising mobile broadband subscription plans and customer speeds. The case for a digitally driven economic recovery is therefore compelling, and we believe that government has a more important role to play than in previous economic revolutions to help support and shape the digital journey, where social returns will be well in excess of private returns. But how can governments put in place the best policy and business environments to maximise these digital dividends? For our collaboration with Boston Consultancy Group, we agreed on the following fundamental relationship. That is that adoption leads to innovation, which further drives adoption, which further drives innovation in an upward, virtuous circle for the digital economy. There are 2 crucial tools: promoting universal penetration of digital technologies and improving innovation quality of new digital technologies. Adoption is simply the use of digital technologies. Here, scale determines potential, the size of the consumer market and the structure and profile of the economic sectors in a country that can use digital transformations. High-quality digital infrastructure is the prerequisite. Innovation is the creation of digital technologies and solutions for domestic consumption, but also for exporting potential. R&D origination and technological transformation is core and requires favourable conditions to promote innovation-friendly environments and startups. Our conceptualised research framework is displayed here. At the base is a proactive government that can support, nurture and accelerate digital economic development and international competitiveness, especially in the crucial broad definition of the digital economy. These government actions impact the market economy, influencing its effectiveness to encourage adoption and attract the required private sector investment into digital infrastructure and other aspects of digital adoption such as cloud computing, the algorithmic economy and the Internet of Things. This leads to crucial innovation and productivity enhancement, further boosted by government efforts to encourage and support research and development and collaboration between academia and the private sector. This then supports digital transformation by improving and broadening the reach of digital tools and solutions, which also leads to the extension of digital transformation to increasingly more traditional economic sectors. In summary, support an effective market, push digital adoption and innovation, and drive sustainable overall economic development through a proactive government. The digital economy is, of course, very broad. Indeed, digitalization is already impacting many economic sectors, many of our jobs and even our social lives and education. After an in-depth literature review and using Boston Consultancy Group's extensive knowledge on company and country digital transformations, we arrived at the following framework for our research program on the current challenges and opportunities facing digital economic development across countries. In summary, sweeping from left to right is the simple but proven relationship that digital adoption leads to digital innovation. 9 interacting drivers influence the speed and magnitude of this process. First of all, at the start, it's all about infrastructure. The more of and the higher the quality of digital infrastructure, the greater the connectivity and national adoption and use. Secondly, small and medium-sized adoption of digital platforms and solutions is required for full adoption, not just big companies. SMEs are a crucial part of the digital economic journey for countries, which will be dependent on number 3, talent, consumer and employee digital skills and digital awareness. Number 4 is then about funding. How easy is it for businesses to get credit and loans to undertake digital transformation? Number 5 is about the regulatory environment. How conducive is it for businesses, internet platforms and universities to innovate, work with the private sector and produce unicorn companies? Which leads to number 6, to further issues relating to the overall quality of the innovation ecosystem in a country. The last 3, 7, 8 and 9 are directly related to government activities and actions to help support domestic digital adoption and innovation that can directly influence digital economic development and competitiveness. We evaluated all the countries in our study, including Brazil and Mexico, across these 9 dimensions to better understand their individual challenges and opportunities and lessons for all countries on their national digital journey. There is a lot more to discuss about our Digital Nations research project on Brazil and Mexico, but in the interest of time I will concentrate on some of the more interesting findings and overall recommendations. This chart illustrates the state of the first key stage, digital adoption in Brazil. The good news is that internet usage and access has increased significantly in Brazil over the period 2010 to 2019. By 71% in fact. It ranks relatively highly against other peer countries, but still below the likes of Argentina, Russia and Chile. But with around 30% of the population still excluded, there is still ample room to close the digital divide and tackle the remaining obstacles to that. It is clear that much of the digital divide points to other commonly seen issues across countries. An especially high 98% of highly educated people in Brazil use the internet, but only 21% with little or no education. Urban usage is much higher than rural, and there is also a significant difference in terms of internet usage across income groups. We also utilised a survey by Boston Consultancy Group across 1,775 manufacturing executives in 12 countries and saw overall increased adoption of advanced technology in manufacturing over the last decade. But the race is competitive across countries in digital transformation. You have to keep adopting just to stand still. The good news again, however, is that Brazil still remains in the top 10 countries of the survey covered by BCG, but this will become increasingly challenging to maintain that top 10 position. The BCG research also tried to ascertain what the main obstacles were to Brazil's business community in adopting digital technologies for Industry 4.0 transformations by asking those same manufacturing executives. The main issues are shown on screen. The most frequently mentioned obstacle, reported by 36% of businesses, expressed concerns over current gaps in skills and capabilities. In second place were obstacles from insufficient digital connectivity in terms of speed and quality. In third place is the absence of suitable Internet of Things platforms to work and experiment with. In fourth place were issues pertaining to data security. And in fifth place, a lack of understanding over appropriate internal governance and processes suitable for digital industrialization. Now to our main observations for another major economy in the region, Mexico. The good news is that Mexican consumers spend on average more online than those in most other major Latin American countries. According to the OECD, its average revenue per user is ahead of everyone else in the region, bar Chile. It also seems to be on a similar growth trajectory of e-commerce leaders such as China, more so than other Latin American countries. This is despite having a lower e-commerce penetration rate as a share of overall retail sales. There is therefore upside potential here given relatively high levels of urbanisation if improved digital infrastructure, including both broadband connectivity and cloud computing, can lead to greater e-commerce adoption. As an example, rural e-commerce is taking off in China due to universal coverage of internet and developed logistics, resulting in its e-commerce penetration rate being higher than its urbanisation rate. It could be possible for Mexico to learn lessons from this. A more worrying concern from the data for Mexico is that its absolute increases in average revenue per user for e-commerce and its e-commerce penetration rate have increased at a smaller pace than other regional competitors in recent years. In Mexico, it is estimated that there are around 4 million small, medium-sized enterprises, of which 97.4% are micro-enterprises. However, they represent only 12.4% of total gross production. Indeed, according to the OECD again, Mexico has the widest labour productivity gap between SMEs and large firms across all of the OECD countries. The productivity gap between small enterprises of up to 50 employees and large firms is particularly big. Bridging this productivity divide therefore holds a key to permanently boosting wider economic growth and reducing income inequalities in Mexico and the broader region. One of the best ways to boost overall labour productivity potential in SMEs could be through digital transformation. Digitalisation can be a game changer for SMEs, introducing smart contracts and automating many back office functions. It can, for example, reduce late payments and improve business cash flow. Going online and trading across borders can also allow SMEs to reach a similar number of customers as larger rivals. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic has only accentuated the need to go digital for many small businesses, to foster resilience or even to continue trading and survive. SMEs that have digitalised are more likely to have found new business opportunities during the pandemic, double the rate of the least digitalised, according to a study by Vodafone. Other reports have shown how digitalisation has built long-term business resilience, increasing earnings before interest and tax by between 12 and 20% in the first year, and increasing speed to market by between 40 and 50% on average. The BCG research highlights that while micro and small business owners have become more tech-savvy, business functions remain mostly manual. And while the vast majority of large businesses in Mexico are using online tools such as banking, government services and search, there is still a lot of room for improvement for small and micro businesses. The biggest problem currently lies with e-commerce, with only a quarter of large and medium-sized businesses selling their products and services online. Even fewer small and micro enterprises are taking advantage of e-commerce opportunities, which could greatly enhance their supply chain and operational efficiencies and allow them to reach more potential customers. There's much more information and analysis in our research, which we'd be happy to share. But in summary, the research project concludes with the following set of immediate priorities and recommendations for the governments of Brazil and Mexico. Number 1, close the digital divide, improve inclusivity. This could be done by supporting online courses to the broader population on internet safety, online banking, e-commerce, and access to digital government services. Seek out other knowledge gaps and close them. Number 2, foster digital use among enterprises, especially SMEs. This could be done by introducing incentives for firms to use online services, for example, reduced fees via e-platforms. Strengthen innovation hubs for experimentation and technological transfer to SMEs. Provide improved digital startup schemes. Number 3, push ahead with the digital transformation of the government. This can be a very useful way of nurturing local digital ecosystems. Promote data sharing and interoperability among public agencies. Number 4, expand quality network coverage to rural and remote areas. Explore regulatory mechanisms to incentivize operators to expand coverage on a commercial and market-led basis. Consider public interventions when needed, especially for rural connectivity gaps. Number 5, gaps in digital human capital and skills. Increase knowledge transfer between business and academia. Number 6, and finally, limited volume of funding in digital initiatives. Strengthen opportunities for public-private partnerships to alleviate the financial burdens for the public sector. More broadly, across the 21 countries that were the focus of our research, we observed 9 common challenges in the development of the digital economy, especially in developing countries. By extension, they are likely to be those key challenges also faced by the countries of the Latin American and Caribbean region. The first group are based on issues relating to adoption, challenges in improving application of digital technologies. These are, number 1, infrastructure, limitations in current digital infrastructure in terms of coverage, performance or affordability of fixed or mobile broadband. Number 2, again, is about SME adoption, insufficient support for encouraging and supporting digital adoption. The second group are based on issues relating to innovation, challenges in improving creation of digital technologies. These are talent. Across the countries, we found very frequently insufficient, highly productive local talent pools were impeding the growth of digital economies, with advanced digital skills due to insufficient pushes in technology upgrading, education reforms, or incentives to retain talents locally. Then it's about funding not being sufficiently attractive to venture capitalists due to small addressable markets, or poor general business environments or lack of government funding. Then it's about regulation, monopolies or oligopolies, or strongly entrenched incumbent firms stifle market competition for new startups and digitally driven entrants. Next one's about the innovation environment, a lack of an atmosphere, a culture or collaborative mechanism conducive to entrepreneurship, such as an innovation hub that fosters technological entrepreneurship. The final and third group relate to challenges in overall governance and the vital role for governments to play in national digital transformation. These are e-government. E-government development is lagging in many countries behind due to a lack of talent, funding, or thinking out of the box. Strategic planning, digital strategic plans are visionary or short-term driven only, or rather fragmented, without a clear long-term overall design, clear milestones or quantifiable KPIs. And finally, number 9, government organisation. There is a limited capacity to put digital strategies into practice at central and local government level. A major root cause commonly observed is the lack of a truly powerful, dedicated top-level government digital economy organisation or collaborative mechanism to mobilise cross-functional resources and policy instruments. Moreover, our research was able to identify across the 21 countries the frequency with which each of these 9 issues appeared as the most acute problems facing each country. As you can see in the table here, it is of interest to note that adoption still remains the top main area of challenge for countries in their digital journeys. Limited infrastructure in terms of coverage, performance, or affordability of fixed or mobile broadband. And again, SME adoption, insufficient support for driving business adoption, especially the digitalization of those smaller firms. But talent remains the most common obstacle that we observed across the countries of the study. Lack of highly productive local talents with advanced digital skills due to insufficient push in technology upgrading, education reform, or incentives to retain talents. These 3 challenge areas were by far the most commonly identified as problem areas across countries. For any government, stretched as they are for resources and competing priorities, we strongly suggest that focusing on these 3 areas first can go a long way to boosting further beneficial innovation, supported by enlightened governance. A final key finding from the research is the importance of market scale and access for national digital economies to overseas markets. This chart depicts a proxy measure of innovation, Boston Consultancy Group's Innovation Index, against a log scale of different countries and regions' nominal GDP. There appears from the data to be a strong correlation between digital innovation capacity and domestic market size. This increases exponentially. It is perhaps no surprise then that the leaders of our innovation index are the United States and China, the preeminent current leaders of the global digital economy on many measures such as size and revenues of their largest technology companies, as well as a number of unicorns, venture capital funding and trailblazers in terms of e-commerce adoption, AI and industry digitalization. Our cutoff point extends back to countries like South Korea, but the size of mid-sized countries' domestic populations and economies acts as a constraint to the success of their digital economic development. But operating across a single digital market, such as the European Union are pursuing, and could be done across regions such as Latin America and the Caribbean, could be a way to rapidly create sufficient market scale to emulate the Chinas and Americas of this world. These larger addressable markets in the Latin America region would allow domestically created startups and e-commerce platforms to build sufficient scale that they could go more capably against the existing internet giants and go global, or better fend off incursions into home markets, as well as retaining local talent and encouraging inward investment to propel their growth into unicorn companies and beyond. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this information was insightful, and I wish you a very productive forum.